Everybody, we're racing on the national circuit with 4 races coming up for you over the course of this weekend for the GT Cup Championship. The first of those 4 races is already lining up on the grid. The sprint race takes place as our first race on a Saturday, followed by our pit stop race later on today, and then tomorrow morning it will be the pit stop race that will take place first, and the sprint race will take place later on in the afternoon. It's always good to see big GT cars on the Grand Prix circuit. We are joined by additional cars that are in invitation classes and not scoring championship points for this weekend, so it's good to see some new names, some returning names, some new drivers, some new teams all in the entry list for this weekend. But at the sharp end of the grid, the front row of the grid, it's familiar drivers that are joining us. I think we can catch up with one of the familiar names, a former champion. Chris Murphy was a 2018 champion. We caught up with him earlier on this weekend. Chris, you've been a long time competitor in the GT Cup Championship, but a former champion as well, and here you are again. Silverstone Grand Prix circuit lies ahead.
Indeed it does. One of my favourite circuits to come to, and also I live 20 minutes away, so it's dead handy for me.
You look at your BMW, the E46 GTR that runs in Group GTB. Arguably it's one of the older cars, but it's one that you thoroughly enjoy racing.
Yes, it's based on a 2002 European Le Mans car, but it was built in 22, built fresh, so it's just an old body shell that we've converted. But my dream many years ago was to race an M3 BMW, and that's what I'm doing now.
Since you've owned this car, it always seems to sort of be work in progress in terms of the development. Every year it comes out and there's an extra little winglet or something that's changed somewhere.
There is. We are always trying to find a little bit of extra, but I think we're there now. There's not a lot more we can do. The power's good, the handling's good, and it's easy to drive, so I thoroughly enjoy driving it.
What are you looking for this weekend?
My racing is always for fun and enjoyment, going home with a smile on my face, not crashing, having a race with somebody else, and taking the mick later.
Well, have a good weekend. Hopefully don't crash and take the mick later.
That's it, lovely, thank you, cheers.
Good to catch up with Chris Murphy. Let us guide you through the grid for this one. I spotted there was a change of the driver that we were expecting, and it's a car that starts on the outside of the front row of the grid, in fact, pole position. So number 6 is driven by Richard Neary, it looked like, the 2021 champion, and alongside it's the Tim Gray Motorsport Radical of Steve Burgess. Row 2 of the grid, making their 3rd ever appearance in GT Cup, Beechstein AMR and Andrew Howard has alongside Top Cats Racing and Tom Rawlings in the Lamborghini. The 3rd row of the grid, Andre Borodin in the Greystone GT returns to the championship. He's got Fraser Fennick in the 2nd of the 2 Top Cats Lamborghinis for company. And then row 4 of the grid, Richard Chamberlain and another Porsche that lies alongside, Seamus Jennings in the G-Cat car that had clutch issues yesterday but joined us for today. Row 5 of the grid, Paul Bailey in the Lamborghini, the reigning champion, alongside Will Orton, who starts for Forsetti Motorsport. And then it's Kev Clark at the wheel of the Woodrow Motorsport Lamborghini that has Owen Hizzy making his debut in GT Cup for company at the wheel of the SVG Motorsport Ginetta. We move on to the next row of the grid, and it's Tom Holland in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren alongside Team Trofeo, a new team for this weekend. James Cayley will be the driver that will be driving in this particular race. Doc Bush is next up alongside the man we've just spoken to, Chris Murphy. And then the final couple of rows of the grid is going to be John Ingram, a Jolt Racing return for this weekend alongside Jazz Sapra, who had throttle switch issues in qualifying, and off the back of the grid with radiator problems in qualifying, it's Mikey Porter, who didn't get a time in, so watch out for that Forsetti's car. It is lying 3rd overall in the championship. It leads Group GTH for the GT4 spec cars and should carve its way through the order. So it's the 2 GTO spec cars, the open specification cars that line up there on the front row of the grid. The GT3 spec car of Andrew Howard has the Group GTC, the Cup spec car, the Super Trofeo Lamborghini of Tom Rawlings alongside, as the cars head out of the loop and up towards Aintree Corner. Remember, we have different groups. GT3 is for GT3 homologated cars, GTO is for open spec cars, GTC is for later models within the last 5 years, Challenge and Cup spec cars, so things like Ferrari Challenge cars and Carrera Cup cars and Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars. Group GTB is for older spec cars. Then we also have Group GTH, which is for fully homologated GT4 specification cars, and Group GTA is for lower spec cup cars, which also includes older GT4 homologations as well. So that's where Jolt Racing sit with their McLaren 570S, because of course that is an older specification GT4 car nowadays. So we've seen Team ABBA do plenty of winning so far this season. They claimed all of the wins at Snetterton. They had one of the 2 wins at Alton Park. So, and if you back up the fact that they won the final race at Brands Hatch, they have won 6 of the last 7 races. And Richard Neary, I'm sure it was that was behind the wheel. Apologies if not, but I think it was Richard I spotted behind the wheel of that one. We were told Ian Logie would start, but he starts from pole position with the Radical of the Nottingham-based man, Steve Burgess, alongside. So neat 2x2 order. And we're about to get this 25-minute sprint race underway. The lights go out on the gantry now, and the cars charge their way up towards Copse Corner. It's been a good start from the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes from the front row of the grid. Steve Burgess is there in 2nd place. Andrew Howard is there in 3rd place, and there's a spin in the background and there's a bit of contact, and I think that was Fraser Fenwick that had some contact somehow with the car of Andre Borodin. So you can see damage to the front of the McLaren, and Fraser Fenwick's car was pointing, I think, briefly in the wrong direction. Hopefully he'll get it fired up again, but no, he is stationary there on the edge of the circuit, and the McLaren has lost the front clamshell bodywork, and that has deposited it in the middle of the circuit. So that hopefully will be collected by the marshals, because it's the first lap. They might have time to run out there, pick that up and get it out of harm's way. Otherwise a safety car would be required. Everybody else, I think, is safely through the first few corners. There you can see the front, almost bonnet, isn't it, of the McLaren. So Andre Borodin, you can see damage to the front of his car, which suggests that it maybe was caught out under braking and touched the rear of the Lamborghini. So he is doing the sensible thing of just being steady, driving that car back at sensible pace back to the pit lane. Good early battle going on between Owen Hissey, making his debut in the championship in the Ginetta. He is hot on the heels of Tom Holland. Tom driving the McLaren for Paddock Motorsport. Tom also with plenty of Ginetta experience. Good to see Jolt Racing back as well. They missed the last round. At the wheel of it at the moment is John Ingram. And there's a spin. That's Andrew Howard that's looped it. So unusual for the double former British GT champion. Lost the tail end of the Beechdean Aston Martin. Has to do a full 360-degree spin to get it pointing back round in the right direction. Now needs to be careful how he rejoins along the exit of Aintree Corner. He's got Jazz Sapra tucked right up behind him. Jazz making his debut in the championship at the wheel of Matty Evans's BMW 1 Series. So some good battles going on in the early stages. Need to keep an eye on what Mikey Porter is doing as well, because remember that number 9 Forsetti car had problems in qualifying with the radiator and didn't set a time. He's trying to make his way through the order. So we've got Seamus Jennings trying to pick him off as well, pick off some of the Group GTH cars. So first lap completed. Tom Holland at the wheel of the McLaren Artura, just a little bit wide there coming out of Copse Corner. He will be leading Group GTH at the moment, and now he's got Greg Caton behind him at the wheel of the Group GT3 Porsche, so that's a good thing for Tom Holland at the moment. He's got a car in another group that's now interrupted the pressure that he was coming under from the Ginetta, and then Mikey Porter at the wheel of the Aston Martin, because both the Ginetta and the Aston Martin also running Group GTH. They're GT4 compliant cars, and Mikey Porter looks to have the run here on the Ginetta of Owen Hissey. He's got the inside line and should be able to work his way through by the end of the Hangar Straight. Yep, through goes Mikey Porter, and is now up to second in the group. Owen Hissey's trying to fight back though. Owen, who's done a lot of Ginetta racing, but more recently has been away racing in the Creventic long distance races, both in Europe and in the Middle East as well. But good to see him back in the UK for a weekend of domestic motorsport. Andrew Howard sitting behind the Ginetta of Owen Hissey at the moment as he tries to recover following his spin earlier on, and that dropped him way down through the order as a result of that. So another car picked off for Andrew Howard. So he will now need to try and work his way through inside the top 10, which again should be able to do. GT3 Aston Martin overtakes GT4 Aston Martin. And now GT3 Aston Martin with extra aero is going to try all the way around the outside at the loop, and then it will have more momentum as it comes on towards Aintree Corner to thread its way through and past Tom Holland's Paddock Motorsport McLaren Artura. So 3 places gained on the 1 lap for the recovering car of Andrew Howard, partnered up with long-time Aston Martin factory driver and of course Le Mans race winner Darren Turner for this weekend. Up to second in Group GTH off the back of the grid member is Mikey Porter. The Forsetti Motorsport Aston Martin is going to pressure Tom Holland at the wheel of his Paddock Motorsport McLaren Artura to see whether he can pick up the lead of the group. This is for 8th and 9th overall, but the lead of Group GTH, and that's the important thing. McLaren from Aston Martin, from Ginetta, nothing to choose between them. Pro Sporting drivers largely opting by the teams to start this race, and Mikey Porter here, I thought he was going to have a go round through Maggots to get the inside line for Beckett, but good driving by Tom Holland, positions the car where he needs it to be. Mikey Porter takes a nice wide sweep in towards the second aspect of Beckett to try and get on the power as soon as he can, coming out of the corner and try and get some momentum on towards Chapel. 2 wheels on the grass as Tom Holland tries to squeeze him. In the foreground, another place gained by Andrew Howard. And now Tom Holland is pushed offline, so through goes Mikey Porter, through squeezes the Ginetta in the hands of Owen Hizzy. They almost lean on each other going round through Stowe Corner, and then right behind them also is Will Autumn at the wheel of the second of the 2 Forsetti cars. That's the black car with the blue flashes. Tom Holland manages to just avoid losing anything more than the 1 place. Owen Hizzy in the meantime coming under pressure for his position, and back in the pit lane is Andre Borodin, and I'm afraid that the McLaren from Greystone GT is out of the race following whatever happened up at Copse Corner between itself and Fraser Fenwick's Top Cats Lamborghini. The Lamborghini is circulating still. May have a little bit of damage to the rear of it, but it is in last place, 17th position at the moment. And there's another place gain. That's Will Orton up the inside of Owen Hizzy. So that's up to 3rd now in Group GTH for the second of the 2 Forsetti Motorsport Aston Martins that we've seen driven by different drivers over the course of this season. The number 10 car, Jodie Sloss, Rihanna O'Meara Hunt, Mark Warren have all had driving opportunities behind the wheel of it. It's Sam Nesser and Will Autumn that share the car for this weekend. Sam Nesser, I'm sure, is making his debut in GT Cup. Will Autumn, I also think is. I don't think we've seen Will out in GT Cup before. He's certainly got plenty of experience, Will Autumn. Now, leading the way, Richard Neary, safely on his way, has just posted the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far. 2 minutes, 0.442 seconds for the car that lies in the lead of the Group GTO Championship, but is second when you add up all of the groups together. The overall championship is being led by the number 2 Lamborghini that Tom Rawlings is driving in this race, which means he's 3rd overall in the race, Tom Rawlings, and leads his group, so that's good championship points for him. Second in the race is Steve Burgess, so it's Group GTO cars 1st and 2nd. Good to see Steve finally having a little bit of luck in the championship after a difficult start to the season with engine problems at Donington Park for the Radical RXC. A big off in free practice, was it, for his car, which put an end to his Brands Hatch weekend. The car wasn't able to be repaired for Snetterton. And finally, at Alton Park, he had some luck and claimed to win, having DNF'd in the first race. Now, this battle we're looking at the moment is for 4th place. Kev Clark feeling the pressure from Andrew Howard, who's trying to nip his way through if he can. Couldn't quite do it as they went in towards Abbey, so he's going to have another go through Farm, but he's on the outside line as they're heading towards the braking area for the loop. Kev Clark hanging on to 4th place. Group GTC car under pressure from the Group GT3 car, so even if Kev Clark loses the place to the Aston Martin, which I think probably will be inevitable, doesn't mean that the car of Andrew Howard or that of Kev Clark have any difference in the championship points that they were scoring before any overtake, because they are in a different group. It's the points you accumulate in your respective group that are important. So through goes Andrew Howard. That now puts him up into 4th position. Kev Clark will drop down into 5th place. Paul Bailey at the wheel of the number 28 Lamborghini, the reigning champion, is down in 6th. Brabham, that he was scheduled to be racing this weekend, had a mechanical issue yesterday, and Paul Bailey has decided to bring out the Lamborghini, and has also decided, since he's put the number 1 on the car as the reigning champion, he's had 0 luck. So for today, he's even renumbered the Lamborghini to his regular number 28 in the hope that all of that misfortune is going to end up behind him. So onto the hanger straight comes Tom Rawlings. This is the car that at the moment lies 3rd overall in the race, but leads Group GTC. It's also the car that leads the championship overall. We've also got this great fight still going on between Paddock Motorsports' Tom Holland, who is now trying to fend off the Forsetti Motorsport Aston Martin of Will Orton. There's nothing to choose between the two of those. The McLaren Artura under enormous pressure as Will Orton looks to see whether he can do something coming out of Chapel. Again, 2 wheels on the grass to try and keep the momentum going. Just about prizing the door open on the inside line as they head up towards Stowe Corner. He's fully alongside, he has the inside line, and Tom Holland knows when he's beaten on that occasion. Let the car go through. There'll be another opportunity that should present itself in the next 15 minutes potentially. So having lost the place, a flash of the lights, and then try and regather your thoughts and see whether you can get back ahead of the Aston Martin, whilst also keeping an eye on what's going on behind as well, because James Cayley at the wheel of the Team Trofeo Porsche, making their debut in the championship, both teams and drivers this weekend. James's dad, he shares the car with son Bill. They have only ever raced Porsches, largely in the Porsche Club Championship Great Britain, which frequently supports GT Cup, but isn't on the programme for this weekend, but making a toe in the water for this weekend. I've got to say, the livery of the car looks fantastic. Harks back to a Porsche Works livery, which we can't mention the name of the cigarette brand, but harks back to a Porsche Works livery from the 1970s and 80s. It really does look absolutely superb, and James Cayley is doing a really good job of making sure that he gains time in every session as they get to understand the car, because they've not really raced this car before. Bounces over the curbs, draws himself alongside Tom Holland. But chatting to James yesterday and Bill, what they said they wanted to do was improve in each session, understand the car a bit more, and make sure that they just stay out of trouble, bring the car home in one piece. And well, most of those boxes, if not all of them, boxes are being ticked at the moment. James Cayley looks though he might have the overlap of the run on Tom Holland this time through. So through goes the Group GTC Porsche, ahead of the Group GTH McLaren. So the Cup Spec Porsche goes ahead of the GT4 Artura. And that then is going to be a change for the final place inside the top 10. Bill Cayley up into 10th place. Tom Holland dropping down through the order. Now, Richard Neary leading by 6.3 seconds at the moment at the wheel of the Mercedes AMG GT3. A GT3 spec car, but it runs in Group GTO. This is Jazz Saprat. You can't miss the livery of the BMW 1M. And also, Tom Holland now instantly coming back under pressure from Owen Hizzy at the wheel of the SVG Motorsport Ginetta, trying around the outside at Stowood, giving the inside line as they head down into the Vale. And Owen Hizzy has made it stick. So place gained for Owen Hizzy. That will put him up to 4th now in Group GTH. In fact, no, put him up to 3rd in Group GTH, put down into 4th Group GTH. Tom Holland, good little fight between those two. And look in the background, I think that will be Fraser Fenwick recovering at the wheel of the second of the two Top Cats Lamborghinis, the number 3 car that was running in last place, but he's now worked his way up from what was 17th, I think, up into something like 13th now. So, Ginetta, McLaren. It is Fraser Fenwick, it's the number 3 car. It's the car with the yellow wing mirrors. That's how you can largely tell the two Top Cats Racing Lamborghinis apart in their Hex.com liveries. In a straight line, Fraser, the man from Lincoln, should have a lot more power. So we're saying Richard Neary leads by now 9.9 seconds, almost 10 seconds. And Steve Burgess, oh, I'm afraid the bad luck has struck once more. It looks as though he's got a puncture on the rear left of the car, and he is trickling the car out of Chapel and on towards the Hangar Straight. I don't think he's going to limp that all the way back towards the pit lane area, is he? No, because it's such a long way back here, and rather than the tyre delaminate and rip the bodywork of the Radical apart, Steve, who's got plenty of experience, been racing Radicals for 20 years nowadays, decides to park the car up. So the car that was running second in the race is out, I'm afraid, which means that this car here, the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes, in the hands of Richard Neary, is leading by now what is going to be something like no longer 9 seconds, with the car in second place retiring. It will mean Tom Rawlings picks up second. It's going to be about 26, maybe even 30 seconds by the end of this lap. So the whole length of the Wellington Straight and some between the race-leading Mercedes and the car that's in second, which is now going to be a Group GTC car of Tom Rawlings. Now this is good for both respective cars, because remember, Tom Rawlings now up to second and leading Group GTC. That's the car that leads the championship standings. Leading the race overall is the car that's second in the championship standings. Two Lamborghinis getting themselves together, which is going to be for 5th and 6th place. But the light blue car, the liquid moly-backed car of Kev Clark, the man from the West Midlands, runs to Super Trofeo specification, so that's a Group GTC car. The black car with the Dayglow flashes to it is Paul Bailey. His car is a GT3 car, but the way that they opt to run it is in Group GTO as an open spec car, so it does run in Group GTO. That's where that's scoring its championship points. So those two cars, I think, are edging closer to each other. Paul Bailey, yeah, was about 1.1 seconds quicker than Kev Clark last time through. So the horsepower racing machine should begin to close in. 10 minutes remain. Over the start-finish line goes Kev Clark and Paul Bailey. They'll be up to, what, 4th and 5th now as a result of Steve Burgess retiring. There's a second between the two of them. 7 laps completed. Andrew Howard, in the meantime, is looking to try and reassert himself back into second place, which is where he was before the spin. But Tom Rawlings is not going to make it easy at the wheel of the Top Cats Racing with Hex.com Lamborghini. So round through Stowe Corner these two cars go. 30 seconds adrift of the race leader. The Beechdene Aston flashing its lights in the hands of the double former British GT champion. Andrew Howard dives decisively up the inside in towards Club, makes it stick. Through goes the Aston Martin, and for Tom Rawlings, why try and defend? Absolutely. That car is not scoring championship points anyway. It's an invitation class car. And even if it were, it's in GT3, whereas Tom Rawlings is in Group GTC. So let it go. Absolutely sensible driving there. Fraser Fenwick still continues his progress through the order as well. He's just about to gain another place, and that's over Mikey Porter. So that's now going to be up to 7th place for Fraser Fenwick. Bearing in mind he was facing backwards at the first corner and lost a raft of time. Clearly no ill effects following the contact with whatever happened between himself and Andre Borodin. So another place gain for Fraser Fenwick, and that's through and ahead of the car that still continues to lead Group GTH and is now running in 8th place overall. Mikey Porter off the back of the grid. Fraser, who appeared in GT Cup, was it Brands Hatch, was it Snetterton, I think, for the first time, having really only raced Mazda MX-5s in the past. So coming out of a Mazda MX-5 Mark 1 to race a Lamborghini on slicks for the first time, you'd think would be something that might take you a while to adapt to. Well, Fraser Fenwick grabbed that rule book and ripped it up and threw it out the window, because he was on the pace immediately and has more than proven his worth of picking up the seat with Top Cats Racing. Mikey Porter still continues to lead Group GTH. His teammate for this weekend, Will Orton, now behind him. You need to keep an eye on the lap times of those two. Now, I would imagine that if Will Orton starts to get close to Mikey Porter, they might be on the radio just saying, look, one car is in a better, stronger position in terms of championship, so just be careful. And equally, those two Aston Martins from Forsetti Motorsport are being caught by debutant James Cayley, who at the wheel of the Team Trofeo car, which is run by Graham Hills. He's got plenty of experience, having been a long time Alfa Romeo racer, Graham Hills. James is putting in a good turn here. So come the pit stop race later on, he'll be sharing a car, I think for the first time ever, with his son, Bill Cayley. The two of them usually race separate Porsches on the same grid, but sharing a car, I think it's probably the first time they've done that. Onto the brakes, through the first aspect of Beckett's, then the next section. This final section is so important. Get cleanly off this one, because you're flat out through Chapel Curve, and the sooner you can get on the throttle in that final aspect of Beckett's, you carry all of that momentum where they are now onto the Hanger Straight. So James Cayley edging up towards the Group GTH Aston Martins as they head up towards Stowe. 6.5 minutes remaining on the clock. Richard Neary now leading by 32 seconds at the end of the last lap. Owen Hizzy in the Ginetta, still not that far up the road from the Paddock Motorsport Artour of Tom Holland. That's going to be the squabble for 3rd and 4th in Group GTH, 11th and 12th overall. Chris Murphy will be next up. He's running 5th in Group GTC at the moment, 13th overall in the race at the wheel of the Woodrow Motorsport BMW E46 M3. He's just recently acquired an E36 M3 as well that he'll be no doubt competing in a different series. He's also got a Z4 that he competed in, I think, just last weekend as well, in another different championship. So Chris Murphy, say a former champion. He was a champion back in 2018 at the wheel of an Aston Martin Vantage at the time. That was for Whitebridge Motorsport, and he was partnered up with Adam Hadfield. A glorious noise of the BMW E46 M3 GTR. Sounds absolutely fantastic, and he really has been a stalwart of the series, Chris Murphy. Kev Clark in 4th place, still ahead of Paul Bailey, so Kev Clark doing a good job of keeping the reigning champion behind him in a straight line. The Super Trofeo spec Lamborghini should outpace the GT3 car because it has more power, but it doesn't quite have the aero of a GT3 car, which means through the twiddly parts that Paul Bailey will catch back up again. And arguably, the Cup spec car is a harder car to drive because it has more power, it has less aero, it doesn't have as many configurations for traction control, I don't think, or ABS as a GT3 car would have. But Kev Clark doing a very good job at the moment of keeping at bay not the number 1 car of the champion, but the number 28 car. So through Abbey, up towards Farm. Next car in the background's not too far away, which is going to be Seamus Jennings at the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche, which hats off to GCAT Racing because they had clutch issues with that car yesterday when they were looking to try and bring the car to the circuit. I think it was in the workshop they discovered the problem, and there was, for a period of time, question marks. We knew they were going to try everything to try and make it here, but we didn't know whether they were going to make it here, and hats off to GCAT Racing and for the perseverance. It does mean that Seamus Jennings and Greg Caton are on the grid for this weekend, which is good to see. So through Brooklands Corner goes the GCAT Racing Porsche. Now I think he's edging up here. Seamus Jennings last time through, yeah, 2 minutes 7.9. Paul Bailey was a 2 minute 8.5, and Kev Clark was a 2 minute 9.1. So 4th, 5th and 6th all getting closer to each other. 4th getting caught by 5th, and they're both getting caught by 6th place at the moment, as Paul Bailey has a good nibble up the inside at Copse Corner. Kev Clark saw him coming. Kev might have compromised his exit speed then. Can Paul Bailey sneak his way through at the wheel of the black Lamborghini? No, can't quite make it stick at the moment. And now all of this little squabbling is just allowing ever more Seamus Jennings to begin to close up. So it's Group GTC Lamborghini trying to hold off Group GTO Lamborghini whilst they're both getting caught by Group GT3 Porsche. So all 3 cars in different groups, all fighting for position as well. With 3 minutes to go, is Paul Bailey going to have a go this time at Kev Clark up the inside at Stowe Corner? And Kev Clark tries to sweep across the nose of the Lamborghini and just about still hangs on to it, and will still have the inside line as they head down in towards the Vale this time through. 2 very experienced drivers. Kev Clark, I think, maybe missed an apex a little bit there, but Paul Bailey equally as much came in from such a tight line that he couldn't get the car rotated as much as he wanted. They've both been fully caught now by the Porsche from GCAT Racing of Seamus Jennings, and as they go down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight, the international pit straight, up towards the very fast right-hander at Farm, there is still nothing to choose between these 3 cars, fighting over 4th, 5th and 6th position. In towards the heavy braking area for Village, all too far away from each other. Nobody's going to have the opportunity either at the loop because the gaps are still too big, and therefore get the clean exit coming out of the loop, and then you're flat out through the left kink now where Kevin Clark is, which is Aintree Corner, and again carry all of that momentum down the Wellington Straight, and again I would suggest up towards Brooklands. They're not going to be close enough again, so we're not going to see the cars weaving around to try and break the tow. And if you look in the background of the shot, who's beginning to catch all of them? Fraser Fenwick. He was the best spot. 2.5 seconds of a lap quicker there. Paul Bailey is pointing in the wrong direction. Over the grass goes Seamus Jennings, and the reigning champion needs to get the car fired up. Through goes Fraser Fenwick, so he'll pick up another place. And for Paul Bailey, he was hoping that the removal of the number 1 from the car and placing it back under 28, which is what he regularly races against, would remove the bad luck, but it looks as though it's just going to be one of those years for Paul Bailey. Now this has really helped Fraser Fenwick. What a drive again from him. Fraser Fenwick pointing backwards at the first corner, dropped to the very tail end of the field, and is now potentially going to be up into, 4th position. Paul Bailey, I think, trying to get the Lamborghini fired up, but has now been lapped by the race leader as Richard Neary wiggles his way by, and will head on to what should be the final lap of the race this time through. So over the start-finish line, 40 seconds remaining thereabouts. Richard Neary having to still work away as he goes past Tom Holland's car and places a lap on the Group GTH McLaren Artura from Paddock Motorsport. Next car to pick his way through will be SVG Motorsport Owen Hizzy. And also picking his way through now is James Cayley. We said that he was catching the Forseti Motorsport Aston Martins. Well, he's got himself ahead of one of them now, which is Will Orton's car. So that is now going to be James Cayley up into 8th position. Still remains 4th in Group GTC at the moment. But that's another overall place picked up. They were hoping to maybe get on the podium in Group GTC. Well, they are just one place off it at the moment, in 4th. But could maybe gain an extra place overall in the race if they could just catch the next Aston Martin that lies up the road, which is the number 9 car from Forseti Motorsport of Mikey Porter. But for Team ABBA Racing Mercedes, and so I'm sure it's Richard Neary, didn't quite concentrate enough when we were getting the camera shots of drivers inside cars on the grid. We were notified it was Ian Loggy that was starting, but I'm sure I spotted Richard Neary behind the crash helmet briefly. Looks as though it is going to be another win. They claimed 1 win at Donington Park, they claimed 2 wins at Brands Hatch, they claimed 4 wins at Snetterton, and also a single win at Oulton Park. So this could be overall win number 9 of the championship season, and it would mean 10 group wins in Group GTO, because they won their group at Donington Park but didn't win the race overall. On that occasion it was the GCAT Racing Porsche that did it. So this is handy championship points again for the team that lies 2nd overall in the championship, and for the partnership of Richard Neary and Ian Loggy, two drivers who regularly race against each other in the British GT Championship. The partnership of coming together for GT Cup in 2024 has worked beautifully well. So out of the final corner, Woodcote Corner, up towards the start-finish line, and that is going to be another win for Team ABBA Racing. They will be more than pleased with that one. And say that backs up the wins that they've taken at Donington Park, at Brands Hatch, the 4 wins that they took at Snetterton, and the win at Oulton Park. So that's 8 wins now for the season. Andrew Howard, in his return to the GT Cup Championship, last time he raced was in a GT4 car with TV star Paul Hollywood. Nice to see Andrew back in the championship, but partnered up with Darren Turner for this weekend, and through goes the Beechdean Aston Martin. Nice warm day for some Beechdean ice cream, isn't it? He goes through to finish in 2nd position and secures top honours in Group GT3. The winner of Group GTC is next through, which is going to be Tom Rawlings. So again, for the overall championship leading car, that's great for them, and for Top Cats Racing, and of course for Charlotte Gilbert, who will share that car with Tom later on. And then we just need to wait the arrival of the next cars over the start-finish line, which will be Kevin Clark and Fraser Fennick, who was only 2 seconds adrift of him on the previous lap, but Fraser lapped substantively quicker. So has Fraser Fennick been able to pick off Clev Clark already? I think he has, yeah, I think he has. What a brilliant recovery drive from the back of the grid following the spin at Copse Corner, which I don't think was any fault of his own. It was just one of those things. But Fraser Fennick got his head down, focused on the job in hand, charged his way through the order, and he's going to come through to finish 4th overall and 2nd in the group, having been backwards at the first corner and losing all of that time. So that is a fantastic drive. Kev Clark comes through to finish in 5th place. That will complete the Group GTC podium. Then it's Seamus Jennings who finishes 2nd in Group GT3, 6th overall at the wheel of Top Cats Racing, at the wheel of the GCAT Racing Porsche. And then 7th place will still be Mikey Porter by the look of things. His Forseti Motorsport Aston Martin has been caught by James Cayley, but he'll come through to finish in 2nd overall. And he will scoop up the win in Group GTH, which is important for them because they lie 3rd in the championship standings. They were leading it, but they didn't attend at Oulton Park last time out, so they have lost a little bit of ground in terms of the championship scoring. James Cayley was next up, then it was Will Orton at the wheel of the 2nd of the 2 Forseti Motorsport cars, and that will complete the top 10. And I think for Will Orton, who makes his debut in the GT Cup Championship, if memory serves me correctly, that will complete the top 10 as well Any cars after Will Autumn will all be off the lead lap of the race. So the cars are on their slowdown lap. They'll be making their way back into the garage area in advance of their pit stop race a little bit later on. So let's confirm the results for you. It was a win for the number 6 Mercedes, Richard Neary and Ian Loggy, and a substantive one as well, nearly 34 seconds in the end, from Andrew Howard, who returns to the championship, finished in 2nd place and secured honours in GT3. 3rd in the winning group GTC went the way of Tom Rawlings, and what a recovery drive from Fraser Fenwick in the 2nd of the 2 Lamborghinis from Top Cats Racing. He finished in 4th place. Kev Clark was there in 5th place, with Seamus Jennings completing the top 6, and it was a win in Group GTH for Mikey Porter, who started off the back of the grid following problems in qualifying where they didn't set a time. Debutant James Cayley comes through to finish in 8th place, with Will Autumn there in 9th place, and Owen Hizzy completing the top 10 in the end. Then as we move to 11th place, Tom Holland was there in 11th place. Paul Bailey, after his spin, recovered to finish in 12th place, with Chris Murphy and Doc Bush 13th and 14th. Jazz Sapra, another debutant in the GT Cup, finished in 15th place. John Ingram was there in 16th, and he was the last of the finishers. A problem and a puncture for Steve Burgess in the Radical, and he retired. Problems at the first corner with contact put Andre Borodin's McLaren 720S from Greystone GT out of the race as well. So that's it for our first race from Silverstone. We will have our pit stop race coming up for you later on this afternoon. That is scheduled to go green at around about 4:15 this afternoon. So maybe if you tune in from about 4:10, 4:05, something like that, be able to pick up any pre-show and any of the drivers and news that we've brought and can catch up with over the course of the lunch break. So that's it from GT Cup. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you later on. Goodbye.